Gia Diva Harja agus Falcha Arash go Irish with Rosie. I hope y'all are going to enjoy today's video because it's one I've been meaning to get to for a while. Now, I don't really know how it's all going to work out. I'm filming this on the 11th of March, but I'm hoping to have this video edited and published by St. Patrick's Day. So if it is St. Patrick's Day, happy St. Patrick's Day. If it's beyond that, then I hope you had a good one. I do have a couple of St. Patrick's Day t-shirts, and I didn't schedule this video very well, and they're in the hamper, so I'm wearing my Bama shirt today. But I am wearing this green headband, and y'all can't see it, but I'm wearing a green skirt, so I'm not pinchable today. Anyway, this newest video is going to be about future tense Irish verbs, specifically first conjugation future tense Irish verbs. My next video is going to be on second conjugation future tense Irish verbs, so you can expect this to basically be a two-part video, eventually. Luckily, the future tense is actually pretty easy in Irish as far as conjugation goes. Like my previous verb videos, I won't be addressing irregular verbs in this video, just the regular Irish verbs. There are only 11 irregular Irish verbs, and I do plan to do a video on those separately in the future. In the meantime, though, I will link in the description below an excellent video by Molly McHale at Gaeilge and Chroí, and she did a video or two on the irregular Irish verbs, and y'all should really subscribe to her if you haven't already because she's good. Okay, though, back to today's topic. Let's get started. Alright, so future tense Irish verbs, first conjugation verbs. So, of course, you will see here on the other side of the screen my video notes, and you can follow along as I'll read and explain them to you. So, first, verbs, of course, are words that express an action or a state of being. For example, run, jump, feel, or be. Unlike in English, in Irish, a verb usually must be changed before it can actually practically be used. So, in the second black box there, you'll see the example, reach, to run. This form of the verb is called the verb root. I've seen some grammar books describe this form of the verb, the most basic dictionary form of the verb, as the verb stem. But I think a more accurate description, as you'll see later, is the verb root, which I've also seen it described as. Now, let's change reach to richi, will run, future tense. Notice that a suffix, fidh, pronounced he, was added. Now, sometimes the verb root must change to a stem before a suffix is added. This is part of why I think root is a better description than stem for the dictionary form of the verb. So, let's look at the third lower black box there to see what I mean. We have the verb buoy, which means to win. This is the dictionary form of the verb, also the singular imperative form of the verb. If you were to command somebody, win, you would say buoy. This is called the verb root. Now, if we want to make this a future tense verb, we'll have to convert the root first to a stem. In this case, we drop the IGH, but we'll get to that later. Buoy turns to bua, and that's the stem. Last of all, you'll see in the blossom part of the flower there, we have buahi, which is will win. That's a usable form of the verb, and it's the future tense. We added a suffix, faidh, buahi. Now, on the next page, you'll see that the suffix added for many verbs in the future tense is fidh or faidh, depending on the verb stem, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Now, this suffix is pronounced differently in each Irish dialect. There are three. There used to be four, now there's three. But the F is always pronounced as an H sound. The following is a guide for the regional pronunciations of the FIDH or FAIDH suffix. Now, keep in mind, I'm not a native speaker, obviously, and I'm not an expert, and I've never been to Ireland, but I have done a lot of research on this and asked a lot of questions and whatnot, and the general consensus is the following. In Ulster and North Connacht, FIDH, FAIDH is pronounced he. Or if you're putting the verb before a personal pronoun is me, you, we, y'all, he, she, they. So if you put it before a personal pronoun, this suffix will then be pronounced more like huh rather than he. Now, I will say I've listened to a lot of Ulster speakers, online, obviously, in various forms, and sometimes I will hear Ulster speakers say the suffix as he, even before personal pronouns. But a lot of times it's more like huh. Anyway, in South Connacht, this suffix will be pronounced huh always, no matter the situation. In Munster, in the very south of Ireland, the suffix will be pronounced hig. But if, again, it's before a personal pronoun, it will be pronounced as huh. At least, so I'm told, and as I've read, and so I've heard. Now, again, technically, this suffix is said with an H sound, especially after vowels, but usually, rather than being overtly pronounced, the H sound will often just reduce or devoice the sound of the preceding consonant. Here's how the sounds of the devoiceable consonants are changed at such times before FAIDH, FIDH suffix. So basically, if your verb stem ends in a vowel, full-on H sound. If your verb stem ends in a consonant and you add this suffix to form the future tense, it's going to do one of three possible things. I'll give you some examples in a little bit, but right now I'm just going to show you how the devoiceable consonants will change. Now, a B at the end of a verb stem will be reduced to a P sound. A D is reduced to a T sound. A G is reduced to a hard C sound. And BH or MH is reduced to an F sound. Now, after L, M, N, and R, the H is pronounced slightly, not as overtly as after a vowel. But if your verb stem ends in L, M, N, or R, you'll hear the H, usually. But after all other consonants, specifically C, P, T, and CH, the H sound is generally dropped, kind of as if it isn't there at all. Now, technically, the H sound in he, or hig, or huh, however you say it in your dialect, isn't actually dropped. That's just the way that it's easiest for my brain to process what happens. I guess what's actually happening, though, is that the C, P, T, CH sounds k, p, t, h, already have breath incorporated in them. They're breathy consonants. So the H sound in the suffix he, hig, huh isn't pronounced separately. It kind of blends together and it sounds like the H sound is dropped in the suffix. Now, I'm going to give y'all some examples of what I mean. So, we've got the verb scrub, to brush, or to sweep. Now, in all these examples, the verb root is the same as the verb stem. I'm going to tell y'all in a little bit how to know whether the verb root will be the same as the verb stem, and if not, how to change it into a stem. But anyway, so, scrub is both the root and the stem. We'll add the suffix FAIDH. That will make it future tense. Will brush. B is one of the devoiceable consonants. so it's always devoiced to a P sound. And if you think about it, it makes sense, because what is a P? It's just a B with breath. B, P. So it's almost like the original B sound and the H in the suffix are combining to make a P sound. So scoob, to brush, scoopy, will brush. Under that we have bug, to soften. We'll add the suffix fidh to turn it to will soften, and it sounds like bucky. The G sound was reduced to a hard C or a K sound. Now in the next yellow box we have two examples of verb roots / stems that end in consonants where you will hear the H pronounced. So tum, to dip, it ends in an M. We add faidh to make it will dip, and it's tumhi. Dun, to close, ends in an N. Add faidh and it becomes dunhi, will close. In the last yellow box, we'll have two examples of verb roots / stems that end in consonants where there's already some breath, so it'll sound like the H in he, hig, huh will be dropped. So, eek, to pay. Iki, will pay. Esht, to listen. Eshti, will listen. Now, sometimes when conjugating, we'll need to distinguish between what's called a broad verb and a slender verb. A broad verb is a verb whose final vowel in its stem is A, O, or U, which are called broad vowels. For example, the verb sawal, to save. That's the verb root, the dictionary form or the singular command form. The stem becomes sawal. Drop the I to form the stem in this case. We'll get to that later. So, an A is a broad vowel, and it's the last consonant in the stem. So, the verb is a broad verb. Now, a slender verb is a verb whose final vowel in its stem is E or I, which are known as slender vowels. So, for example, the verb esht, to listen. Now, in this case, as we saw earlier, esht is a verb that is the same from root to stem. Its final vowel in its stem is I, which is a slender vowel. So, it is a slender verb. Now, on the next page, you'll see that there are two main categories of Irish verbs, as you may remember from some of my previous videos. By the way, can you tell I finally got a ring light? Anyway, today we're only talking about first conjugation Irish verbs. These are verbs with the suffix faidh or fidh in the future tense. Now, here are four types or subcategories of verbs that make up the first conjugation verbs. It's important to learn these main categories because if you learn them, you'll always be able to spot the difference between a first conjugation verb and a second conjugation verb, and then know how to conjugate it. Now, the first of these subcategories of first conjugation verbs are verbs whose verb root is one syllable just in general, such as riech, to run, or alp, to devour. Also in the same subcategory in the yellow box are another kind of verb which generally conjugates the same way within the first conjugation verb family. And those are two-syllable verbs with a fada, which is an accent mark, in the second syllable. This is more rare. Generally, all first conjugation verbs are one syllable, but this is the exception, such as the verb sawal, to save. The A has an accent mark in the second syllable. It also has an accent mark in the first syllable, but as long as there's one in the second syllable, you can, I think, almost always be sure that it's a first conjugation verb. Now, the second subcategory in the blue box below that conjugates a slightly different way are one-syllable verb roots that have a fada, o fada, u fada, eo, or ua plus IGH. For example, lay, to dawn, doi, to burn, or bui, as we saw earlier, to win. The third subcategory below that in green are one-syllable verb roots with e fada plus IGH, such as the verb lay, to read. And last we have the purple box, which are one-syllable verbs with a short vowel, that is a vowel without a fada at all, plus IGH or I fada GH, or just a single consonant and IGH. For example, the verb ni, to wash. That one is just a consonant with IGH. Now, to learn how to conjugate each of these subcategories of first conjugation Irish verbs into the future tense, let's look at each subcategory. So first we have the one-syllable Irish verbs, such as ri or alp, and you don't change them at all from root to stem. The stem will be exactly the same as the root. In the same subcategory, we have the two-syllable Irish verbs with a fada in the second syllable, such as sawol. Now, for these ones, to form the stem from the root, you'll remove the final I. So sawol, remove the I, and it's sawol without the I before the L. That's your verb stem. This will be important. Now, I have a note there in the black box below that. So note, a few two-syllable first conjugation verbs actually keep their final I even in the stem, and the root and stem will be identical. The most common of this kind of verb that I've personally heard is chaman, to drive. So chaman, to drive, is the verb root. The verb stem will keep its I and it'll still be chaman. So once we know our stem in this subcategory, to form the future tense, we'll simply need to add FAIDH if the stem is broad, or FIDH if the stem is slender. See why it was important to learn how to determine if the verb is broad or slender? So, for example, esht again, to listen. The stem will be the same as the root. It is a slender verb because the final vowel is a slender vowel. So we add FIDH. Eshtishi, she will listen. Now, under that we have the verb chaspine, to show. This is spelled as though it has a broad T sound in standard form, but in Ulster I've mostly heard this as though it has a slender T, ch, instead of t, chaspine. To form the verb stem, we remove the I, leaving just chaspon. We'll add our FAIDH suffix and say chaspani Rory, Rory will show. Now, our next subcategory in blue will consist of one syllable, again, Irish verbs with either a fada, o fada, u fada, eo, or ua plus IGH, such as lay, doi, or bui. To form the stem from these verb roots, simply take away the IGH. So, for example, lay, to dawn, take away IGH, and it'll be lay. By the way, I try to speak in an Ulster dialect because that's my personal favorite dialect. This particular verb, the a fada, would be pronounced more like all. So at least in Connacht, it would be loy, and then law in the stem. I think it would be loig and law in Munster, but don't quote me on that, I'm not sure. Anyway, all verb stems in this group will be broad, so simply add FAIDH to form the future tense. So, for example, bui, to win, buahama, I will win. Doi, to burn, dohasha, it will burn. Alright, our third subcategory in green consists of Irish verbs that are one syllable, again, with e fada plus IGH, such as the Irish verb lay, to read. Just like the previous category, you'll take away IGH to form the stem. So lay, to read, take away IGH, you're left with le, still pronounced the same, as the verb stem. All verb stems in this group will be slender. So this time you'll want to add I, F-I-D-H to form the future tense. So for example, again, le, to read. Lehi pol, pol will read. Che, to heat. Chehama, I will heat. Now our last subcategory is in purple, and this will consist of Irish verbs with, again, one syllable with a short vowel, that is a vowel with no fada, plus IGH or I fada GH, or sometimes just a consonant plus IGH. For example, ni, to wash, n, a consonant plus IGH. To form the stem, again, all you have to do is take away IGH or I fada GH to form the stem. So, ni, to wash, take away IGH, you're left with n. Now, in this category, subcategory, broadness or slenderness is irrelevant in this group. Simply add I fada F-I-D-H to form the future tense. So, for example, ni, to wash. Nihama, I will wash. Under that, you have sni, to carve. Take away the IGH, add I fada F-I-D-H, and you have snihi anya. Anya will carve. Now we're actually almost done here. See how easy that is? So let's look at 3 extra things you need to know. Questions in Irish will trigger uru in the future tense when possible. So for example, buenhatu, you will reap. But if you want to ask, will you reap, you have to add the particle un before the verb and add an uru. For more information on what uru or eclipsis is, you can look at my previous video on that, which I'll link down below. But basically you add a special buddy letter to the beginning of the verb. The buddy letter for B is always M. So, winhatu, will you reap? You basically ignore the B sound, and the sound of the M eclipses or takes over the front sound. Winhatu, will you reap? Negatives will trigger shevu in the future tense when possible. Shevu is when you add an H after the initial consonant of a verb, and the initial consonant and the H will combine to make a whole new sound. So, for example, chehama, I will heat. You add the particle ni beforehand to negate the statement, and then you add an H after the initial T in chehama, and it changes from a ch sound to a h sound. Ni hehama, I will not heat. Negative questions will trigger uru in the future tense when possible in Irish. We already went over what uru or eclipsis is. So for example, pokashi, she will kiss. We add the particle na before the verb to ask, won't she kiss? And it'll be na bokashi, won't she kiss? B overtakes the P sound. So, na bokashi, won't she kiss? Now, very last we have a bonus fact. As y'all may know, some speakers, I think mostly in Munster, but I could be wrong, some speakers will combine the verb and the pronoun which means we. For example, while some may say, rihamwich, we will run, others will say, rihamij. Here are 2 other examples below that. Poki plus mwij. Some would say pokamwij, but others would combine the 2 and say pokamij, as if it's one word. Below that, snehi, will carve, plus mwij, we will carve. While some would say snehamwij, others will combine the 2 and say snehamij, as if it's one word. Well, Chin that's it for this time. Thank you again for spending some of y'all's time here again with me today. If you'd like to save or read any of these video notes, you can find them linked below, and be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel here if you haven't already, and follow me on Instagram. But anyway, Kajin Hiedu Yele, Slanderful!